What's up, Grid? I'm super pumped. That's right, Max here. I'm super pumped to be bringing Max in from Fort Worth, Texas, right? Very cool. Max, hey man, thanks for sharing some time with us today. I was going through your bio a little bit, and I was like, hey, this guy was a math teacher. He's a teacher at heart, right?
Yep.
Let's explore a little bit about his journey. Why real estate? How does a math teacher get into real estate, right? And then it sounds like you kind of went full circle, and now you teach real estate entrepreneurs how to generate more business through writing books, right? So, but I want to understand your journey, right? So tell us a little bit about you and how you even got in this journey of real estate.
Yeah. So I wanted to get in real estate like back in 05 when I first got married. The problem was I didn't understand personal development. I wasn't really reading a lot. And so I would go to some boot camps. I went to, some different, I think back then it was called like Trump University, but it was like real estate people. And I was trying to figure it out, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so I worked in corporate America, not really where I wanted to be at all, big company, just not for me. I went and became a teacher because my wife's a teacher and I loved it. It was like awesome every day. Math has always been my favorite subject. That comes in real handy in real estate because there's a lot of math in this business. But I didn't have any intentions of ever leaving teaching. And then what happened was about 7 years into my teaching career, my family's getting, larger, as you can see from the picture up there. It's like one every 2 years. And so I was like, the bills are going up and I want to make more income. So I try to do some side hustles in the summer. I had friends who said they want to start businesses, but then they didn't really want to start businesses. And my friend who's like super conservative, he works for the government. And he said, we went on vacation together. And this was, I think about 6 years ago. And he said, hey, I bought a rent house. And I was like, really? Like, I was so surprised. And he told me how it worked and what he did. And his family's big family like mine. It was the same boat, like he had to do something. He's like, I'm working for the government. I know you got a lot of people work for the government where you are, it's like the pay's locked in, I got to do something. And so, he's like, if I can just buy one rental a year, that'll make a big difference in my nest egg. And I was like, And I thought about it some more. And then for me, I'm just like all in or not at all, so I just like started learning, I'm 10 years, older now when I'm trying this real estate journey. I just have more experience, and I'm more motivated, really. It came down to motivation. And so I just started learning. I studied. I found a local mentor who owned a RIA club, worked for him for free. And then within about 90 days, I got my first 2 deals under contract, wholesaled one for like 16 grand, quit my job 5 years ago today. And I flipped about 125, 130 houses. I still wholesale. And then I started, it led to other things just because we're in a competitive market. And I think a lot of them are right now, but Dallas has been for a long time. And so, I just started to really just learn how to get good at marketing because that's where it all starts. And, but that's what got me into it. I never planned on quitting my job. I just wanted to just get a rental or two like my friend. But then when I saw the active income that you could make, I was like, I'd be a fool not to do this. And I got in with good people that, were way ahead of me and they helped me. And I joined some really good groups and just kept learning, watching shows like yours. And I'm still learning. But yeah, now I just finished my student call like just before I came on here. And, there's people on that call that are just, they have like huge companies and they're so accomplished and they're like, this helps me so much. So it's cool because I feel like I'm getting the same satisfaction that I was when I was teaching math at an inner city school and I was helping those kids and I was making money for me too. And I feel like I can still do that now with real estate, with my deals and my student group. So yeah, I'll probably just do this forever. I really like it.
That's awesome, man. It's interesting because my daughter, she wants to be a history teacher. She's 18. She wants to be a history teacher. And I've always told her, yes, you could be a teacher. And I like, awesome, you could do that. But there's this whole other world that exists where you can also be a teacher and you can amplify your income, right? But, she's at the mindset right now where, hey, entrepreneurs, I see how hard you and mom work, right? And have worked. And she's like, I don't want to do that, right? So, but I believe that all good sales starts with teaching, right?
I
And
think,
all good business owners are teachers, whether it's their people, their staff, their clients. So we're big fans of teachers, right?
yeah,
Because we always say that we sell by educating our clients and making them smarter in the process.
yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question on that. Uh, when you said you flipped 100 houses, was
Mhm.
that wholesales? Was that fix and flips? Like, what was it primarily?
A combination, but mostly fix and flip because I had a good crew and I had access to the capital markets, and the market's just been so hot the last 5 or 6 years.
Sure.
I mean, I still flip during a downturn too, but that hasn't been the case for the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
a little bit of wholesale, but only only wholesale lately. I mean, I know there's people who are still fix and flipping, but I don't have time to take those on like at the moment of this recording. I could just wholesale it to my cash buyers list because like one, you don't even really need to. And when I say wholesale, like wholesale too, because if you can just take it down and list it the way our market is, you make almost as much as if you took it all the way to retail, and there's so much more risk. So, and building supplies and contractors and all that, but almost everything that we did before the last couple of years, before I got busy doing anything but just deals, was just mostly fix and flip.
Got it.
Yeah.
And did I read that you also have your real estate license?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I got that. It's kind of the writings on the wall. I mean, they just outlawed wholesaling in Oklahoma. It's already happened in Chicago. And normally how things go, people who come on the show and think they can predict the future. I kind of question that. The future is very hard to predict. What's going to change, very hard to predict. But what's not going to change is much easier. And what's not going to change is that there's going to be more and more desire for government regulations under the guise of consumer protection. And maybe some of it is, but then maybe some of it is just, fees and things like that. So I see that happening more. And as being active in the investor community, I think that it's something to consider if you've never thought about getting a license, because it's probably going to open up some doors, especially now, because we have some deals that before I wouldn't have been able to monetize, but they're listing deals. They're not deep discount deals. I mean, today is a new record. Did you know today's a new record? Today is a new record because today is the easiest day in the history of humanity for somebody to get on their phone and find about 40 people in your city that can pay a lot more than you would ever pay in your wildest dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And investors got to wake up to this like quick, because they're going to get left behind. And so that's important.
That's super important. My journey was on the investor side, and then it migrated on to the agent side. We built a big, agent business, but I've always thought like an investor, right? And maybe 3 or 4 years in, I'm like, man, whether you're a wholesaler, you're a rehabber, you're a fix and flipper, you're in construction, it's all earned income. At the end of the day, for me, it's about buying assets that I'm going to hold long term. But I'm like, there's no difference between a wholesaler and a listing agent. It's the identical business. You're just controlling real estate with a piece of paper. One is a purchase contract, one is a listing agreement, right? And so I've been a big advocate of trying to help people understand, it's just another tool in order to kind of fulfill the business that you're already in, right? So, and you give people options. So I'm glad you said that, right? For sure. Well, you've been you started, 5 years ago, it sounds like. So you've experienced, a good market this whole time. I'm curious, and maybe the answer is no. Maybe you haven't been punched in the face yet as a real estate entrepreneur, or have you?
Yeah, I have, but I wasn't doing it full time. I was the executor for my grandma's estate, and it wasn't, you say estate, but I mean, they just had kind of, blue collar kind of background. But when we tried to sell her house after she passed away, it took forever. It was 2011. It was a very, very difficult, time. And I wish I had known everything that I had known now. I would have structured it totally differently. But we went through, when the buyers go away, everything changes, and the credit markets were very difficult. And so we really had to invest a lot of time and energy to get that house sold. And, the price was, very, very low. They ended up just tearing it down, even though it was in great shape. And because they knew that land was super valuable, and then waited a couple of years for it to really come up. And now, what was maybe a $500,000 house back in like, 05 that we sold at a discount for like 200. Now there's, a $1.5 million house on it. So, really understanding and having, so that was a big kick in the face, because we could have structured and done that deal totally differently, but I just didn't know. And that's why, not reading and not investing yourself is like, the biggest opportunity cost. And so now, it's nice to be able to do a couple things. One, educate people who are in my grandma's situation, educate people through my books when I give them out to my motivated sellers, educating these families on what their options and choices are. Like you said, is a great sales tool and helps them kind of avoid making some of the big mistakes that we made, because I just didn't know any better.
Max, tell me about some of the books you've written. What was the first one you ever wrote?
Yeah. So the first one came out of necessity. So it's 2017. I have an office. I've got a couple of people helping me buy. I'm like really scaling this thing up, and I'm excited about it. And, but it's all about deal flow. And I was putting money into deals and all these different marketing campaigns. I had like my steady ones, and then I had like the new ones, and I had like these fringe ones that were kind of long shots. And I felt like literally all I was doing was just marketing. And I had a project manager to help me with, we had about 6-8 flips going at one time, but you know how those go. You got to keep your finger on the pulse, and somebody works for you doesn't have the same skin in the game that you do. And so, stuff was kind of just falling by the wayside. It wasn't as efficient. And I was like, damn, what am I going to do? So I actually thought about leaving real estate because it's so frustrating. Like literally I'm sending all this money out. Sometimes I'm getting a deal. Sometimes I'm not. The worst part was I go over to people's houses and they acted like they were doing me a big favor. They're like, they're like the girl who gets asked to prom by 1,000 people, and they're just like, take a number, And so, it's true. Like, you're going there. And
I'm laughing because I know that feeling.
So here's what I did. Make a long story short. The first thing I did, I had done about 40, 50 deals by then. And I said, okay, what is like a perfect deal for me? Like maybe I'm looking at this marketing thing the wrong way. Maybe instead of looking at what everybody else is doing and try to copy it, why don't I just be true and just say, what is it that I want for my life, for my business, for my family? And so I made a list of like who my dream customer is. And it's somebody who, doesn't fight me about the deal, somebody who, sees me as like, the consultant, and, somebody who is just generally like, has lived in their house a long time, and they need, help, and they need like real information. They're not just looking for a transaction. And so what I found is that there was a pattern, because the other thing too, is I was getting caught up in the whole, how many deals are you doing? Like trap. And so I was so focused on trying to hit this like magic number of deals that I was buying these skinny deals. And I was like, this ain't going to work, So I want to have good profit in my deals. I wanted to, have people who wanted to work with me, and I wanted to have fun. And all signs pointed towards seniors. Mm-hmm. These folks, I mean, they lived in their house a long time. The houses, really weren't in bad shape. They just needed, cosmetic updates a lot of times. And a lot of times I wasn't just working with the senior, I was working with the family. And, I took care of my grandma. She took care of me. So like, I met my wife taking my grandma to church. So like, I've been involved in helping seniors for a long time. So it kind of was like a natural fit, and they needed the kind of help I had. And so what I did was, this is how I came up with the book idea. Is it didn't come up from me. It came from a motivated seller. So I'm out there, I'm learning about assisted living facilities, because a lot of times they're moving from the houses to assisted living. And they're like, do you know of some places, that I can look at? So I just started doing some research. So I just started researching all the things that were important to them, and doing more than just giving them a cash offer for their house. So I'm buying this house. The daughter of the seller is like, you've helped our family out a ton. This has been super stressful. I know what that's like, because I went to do the same thing when we handled my grandma's estate. And I just didn't have a guide to help me. And she said, you should write a book about this. And, I'm a dyslexic math teacher, so the chances of me writing a book are like 0. And I sort of just laughed it off. But then when I thought about it, I was like, that's a pretty good idea. If somehow I could figure out how to do this, I could go from being the person who knew a lot about senior housing to the person who, wrote the book on it. And so it's like a real simple formula. I just wrote down all the questions people keep asking me over and over. I wrote down all the questions that, people should ask. They just don't know to ask. And and I just answered it. And then, there's a big process writing a book. If I had known actually how long, full disclosure, if I had known how long it would have taken, I probably wouldn't have, but I did, and then I got it done. So Home to Home, this book right here, the Home to Home, the Step-by-Step Senior Housing Guide, that was my first book. And all it was designed to do, because, everybody gets on these shows, they talk about all the good stuff. Well, what about the bad stuff? Well, look, it's not that I don't love people. Trust me, I do. But it's not scalable for me to be in living rooms for 4 hours, because these folks have got 40 years of questions. Mm-hmm. And so originally I wrote the book just so I could hand it to them to avoid some of the 4 hour, let them, the book answer the questions. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that was my idea. I knew that when, I've received a lot of books from people, and even if it's not a good book, I don't want to throw it away. So I'm like, versus a postcard, people throw that in the trash all the time. I was putting out bandit signs, and my team was putting them out. And literally, when I give somebody my book, it's like a bandit sign in their living room. Like, they don't ever throw it away. I'll come back to their house like 6 months later. It's right there on the coffee table with all the other autographed books from the home buyers, which is zero. And so I'm smoking everybody. And so and then it evolved. I created a workbook, and I started doing, this is crazy ninja. I didn't know any of this was going to happen. I started doing workshops at churches and senior centers, which traditionally were not like, oh, you're a predatory house buyer? Yeah, come on in and speak to our congregation. That never happened. And I'm not a predatory house buyer, but a lot of folks, in our industry, sometimes it's a little bit of a bad reputation. Some of it earned, some of it probably not earned. And so I wanted to speak there. I knew I could really help these people. And the book was sort of that pathway for them to feel like, okay, this is somebody who's serious about their business. This is somebody who's credible. This is somebody who's leading with value, and we're going to let them in and endorse them. And when you get a third-party social proof testimonial from the pastor of a church or a mayor or people like that, there's no comparison. They're not, all of a sudden now we just shifted from the biggest seller market ever in Dallas-Fort Worth to the buyer's market, where they're like, they have to qualify to work with me. And the only thing that changed was a how-to book for my ideal motivated sellers.
Yeah, the positioning around it. It's interesting. Do you so I did this in 2011, around 2010, 2011, around short sales, but I did it as a blog, right? Because there was all these questions that I just kept getting asked all the time. Exactly. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go on. I'm going to talk about, what a short sale is, how do you qualify for the whole thing? And I found that was, just a massive lead gen tool. Did you ever convert it to a blog? I'm just out of curiosity. Or did you
So on our home buying website, we just take excerpts from, I created some educational videos, which are based on the book. And then we just transcribed them and then, put them on there. We have it for our publishing business. We have it for our home buying business. It's sort of a model that'll it'll work forever. And really like having a great YouTube channel or a podcast, it's doing pretty much the same thing. What's cool about a book that I really like, and at first I did an ebook. I didn't even talk about that. And I know a lot about this subject, right? But it's like, I had to figure all this out as I went along, and all those things are good. The thing that's really unique about books is that they can bring you a lot of value, even if the people never consume the book, because it's a physical anchor. And so like an ebook, that's valuable, but a person doesn't think it has the same like perceived value as a physical book. Mm-hmm. And if they don't read it, then nothing happens. It just gets lost in their email. So I didn't really understand how different I would be viewed, how quickly I would be viewed. Like we had people we had somebody call yesterday. They didn't know that I had a book. And so when we did the intake on our script, I just say, have you gotten a copy of our book yet? And then when we do, you can feel like the tone change over the airways. And I'm like, okay, I wrote this book for seniors, but if you just, chapter 3 is just ways to sell your house, pros and cons of each. So if I send you a copy of the book via courier and I sign it, will you read chapter 3 before I come over? Because if you do, then I can come over. And if you can't, then we can just part friends. And they're like, they don't know what to say. They've never had anybody say that to them. And then I'm going over there and it's like, they read chapter 3, but they read all the other stuff. And even if they're not a senior, who doesn't want to work with somebody that likes seniors. Like I tell my daughters, you talk about your 18-year-old daughter. My oldest is 14 and I've got 5 girls and a boy. So I'm like, so we're talking about this a lot. And I'm like, find a boy who likes hanging out with old people and likes hanging out with kids, because in order to be like that, you got to have some patience, and usually they're not scuzz buckets, generally speaking. And so I get value from it, even if I'm working with a millennial, because they're just like, okay, this person's serious. And then this person, and now we have a way that we allow. So I have a network we've expanded to like 3 or 4 books now. And then I license them all over the country. I didn't even know that was a business, but I'm at the mastermind, I'm scooping up deals. And my friends are like, hey, I'm in Florida. Like, you ain't buying houses here. I'm in California. Can I use this? And I was like, I don't know. And then we figured out a way to do it. And so now what we do is we just create like customized copies. We write them into it, only change like 5% of the book. Then they use it as their tool in their marketing to lead with value. And it's been fun. It's just been it's so interesting, because all I did, this is like a mistake I made that I don't want anybody listening to make this mistake. All I did when I was go to these masterminds is they're in these cities. One of my friends is in Lynchburg, Virginia. I know it's a big state. And they're just like, just gobbling up deals. They got no competition. And I'm over here, 14 VAs, skip tracing 14 million different things with all these Zapier integrations just to get a deal paying $4,000, per contract. And I'm like, I go home and complain. And I'm like, damn, if I was in Lynchburg, I'd just be smoking everybody. But if I had, I would have never written the book. And then that's opened up doors that I never even knew existed. And so it's amazing how that works, I guess.
Well, you let your mind figure out solve the problem, right? Like when you're confronted with a problem, maybe this is your math teacher in you, right? You're like, you've like, how do I solve this problem? So what was the second book like?
Private lending. So it's an interesting story. I didn't even write it. My friend did. So I got an award, Robert Kiyosaki. It was really cool. I mean, it's actually amazing, because when I went to Trump University in 2005, back when I had no plan of what to do, I had to stand in line for like 2 hours to get Robert Kiyosaki's book. I love his stuff. And I see you got cash flow, so you like him too.
Absolutely.
So I was at this conference, and the book system got Innovator of the Year award as, unique. Nobody's ever really heard about this system in our market. And he was there, he gave me the award, and then he asked me for a copy of my book. And I'm thinking to myself, that I'm struggling my whole life with dyslexia. It is not easy to read. I don't make excuses. And I remember this guy, I stood in line 2 hours to get his book, didn't get into real estate. You just never give up. And now I'm standing next to him. We're talking, we're sharing cigars, and he's asking me for a copy of my book. I'm like, this is crazy. So somebody saw that. And they called me and they said, hey, I'm Brant Phillips, he's my friend, my business partner, my EXP sponsor, on and on. And he said, hey, I wrote this book, this how-to book for private money lenders. And I've been giving it out in Houston and serving people and leading with value. And it's been great. Is there some way that we can use your system of licensing to, get this out to a lot of people and help them? And so we did. And so we distribute that. And we plug people into it. We've created a whole course around it. So people, because I have friends who get books, but they don't know what to do with them. And so and a lot of times when they give it to somebody, the person they give it to doesn't care about it because it's not talking about something they care about. So we write books that are specifically laser focused, reverse engineered on what our ideal prospect, who we need to say yes to something, what they care about. And then we just write the investors into it, so they can just spend an hour or 2 of their time instead of hundreds writing their own book. And we already know how to distribute it and how to give it out and all that. So that's sort of like this whole business that came out of a competitive market and just a willingness to try stuff.
So that brings me to the next question. What does your life look like now, right? What's the percentage of real estate versus book publishing versus speaking engagements? And you might, you're still in it. We're all evolving constantly, right? I'm just curious, what does it look like today, and where do you want to take it?
Yeah, so I really like leverage. And one of the things that I was frustrated with deal flow is that, you can get leverage, but sometimes it's at the expense of margin. And, you're just always going back, the motivated sellers, there's not a huge like recurring element to it. You know what I mean? It's like they have one house their whole life to sell you at a discount. And so I like businesses that have more of a recurring effort, just because the effort to return ratio is like the most important metric. And then my return on time invested, because, I'm 40, I'm going to live, I'm like, my game plan's 100. So I still got a lot of years, but they are finite. So what I do is that I still have people here locally that I send marketing out to, very targeted lists, seniors. So when I get deal flow from that, then it's just wholesale or hotel, and a few deals a month. They average out. And then other than that, the publishing, that takes up some time. I have a coaching company with my partner, Mike Hambright. So we do some coaching for new people, which is a new venture, and it's really exciting. And I've been working with experienced people, so it's fun to be able to help newer people and kind of remember what it was like when I was there. And we have, all the skills and knowledge and network to actually, if they want to do the work to, make this for yourself. It's an amazing business. The future is to be more passive. I mean, I think that's what everybody wants to do. So sure. As more active income comes in, how do we put that into a tax deferred status? And then how do we invest it? What's really cool that I like is like these people who are my authors behind me, like they become my friends. They come to my weekly call. I help them as much as I can because I enjoy it. Not like, if I just wanted to make just straight, the best effort to return ratio by far is EXP. Nothing else is even close. Like anybody who doesn't understand that hasn't had it explained from somebody who's a business owner, because you can't outwork 7 levels of duplication. You can't outwork leverage. We're on leverage right now. We're utilizing technology leverage. Labor leverage is really, really old hat. People made like money, labor leverage, back when it was Rockefeller and stuff like that. Sure. Financial leverage. So it's like, how can we use all of them? So I just want to use more technology. But what's cool is that I get to know, like, and trust my students. They come on the call. And so then if they want to expand their operation, that creates a passive investing opportunity for me. So, and I get to know them. So that's how I'm getting involved in residential assisted living space. And Gene Garino, I wrote his book, and now he licenses it to his students. And we're doing one for another big coaching company. Anytime that somebody needs to their themselves or their students have to get some permission from somebody to do something. And if it's the more complicated, the more a how-to book can position them, differently to increase awareness, to increase conversion rate. So those are the things that I'm the most passionate about. But I really want to help people because making money is great. I'm almost as happy as I was when I was teaching math, not quite. I actually get on my district website every so often and just look at openings. And it's like, I'm not leaving real estate, but I'm telling you, when you find something that you like, there's no feeling that's greater. So
let's dive on that one a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're getting the fix of teaching, right? Yeah. Like if you're teaching, so what's the difference between that and teaching, what was it, high school math?
Yeah.
Middle school math, right? Is it because they're younger? Okay. So why not coach and teach young entrepreneurs, right? Like it's one of the things that I'm passionate about.
Oh, really?
My director of operations started with me when he was 18 years old. He's 27 now. And I love finding young talent and then and just pouring into them. So
yeah, I think that's the next frontier. And our coaching company is newer, and so I don't even know how old everybody's going to be, and I don't care. But yeah, I think there will be some of that. But it's just fun to help. I just wish that I wish that somebody had explained some of these things to me. It's my fault. It's my responsibility. The books are there. I didn't read them, but I'm actually more coachable now than when I was younger, and so I just wish somebody had given me a little nudge entrepreneurially. So who knows, maybe someday we'll collaborate on a project. You never know.
That sounds good, man. I'm all about collaboration.
Yeah.
Okay. So your journey's gone from real estate investor, generating these leads, grinding it out, trying to figure out what's my, cost per client acquisition, like the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, you know what? I just had this thing, like Russell Brunson talked about how he could make his cost per client acquisition literally zero because of a book, right? When he did Expert Secrets or .com Secrets or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then that helped him launch ClickFunnels and all the rest. That's fascinating. So the next chapter, I'm just curious, the next chapter for you then is continue doing what you're doing, just doing it at a bigger scale, making more of it passive than active, right?
Yeah.
And then just keep pouring into, people in this business as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And it's funny, the older I get, the less I want. I actually found that like just desiring things is like held me back. And now I'm working hard on trying to do that less and not, upgrading to another house every 3 years and all of that stuff because, I just want more freedom, but I really want to help other people get it too. And I really like helping my students get more deals with their books. So like, that's super fun. And, probably like some volunteering and stuff. Like I said, I mean, I work with young people and not even get paid. It's just one of the things I've noticed is as things have progressed, I actually have access to more opportunities, not less. But I have less time. So it's like, oh, this is kind of a bad correlation. Like where were you like 5 years ago when I only had like one or two things? So saying no, but I'm super happy. And I don't know. I mean, everybody has a different view. I listen to like religious people. I listen to atheist people. I just try to get their perspective from both. I go to church, obviously Savior Publishing House, but I do understand, people who are like, if it can't be scientifically proven, blah, blah, blah. And I get all that. I totally do. But at the same notion, I'm like, damn, if the only reason that me and you are on this planet is just to pleasure ourselves and just go on vacation and eat cool food and have all this time freedom, I don't feel very fulfilled like that. I think that would make me kind of sad. One of my friends, Naval Ravikant, his books are amazing. I've got a lot of help from like Bill Ackman, not like personally, but if he's listening, give me a call. I'm one of your biggest fans. But these guys on Wall Street, these guys in Silicon Valley, they're really smart. I read all their books. Anybody who's a CEO of anything, I just got the book from the CEO of Microsoft. I just like reading these people because when you get other perspectives, you see things so different. And but one of them says, do you remember, what it's going to be like when you die? Well, do you remember what it was like before you were born? It's going to be like that. And I was like, oh, damn, which obviously I don't remember that. And he's being a little snarky. And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. My mom's an ICU nurse, 43 years. She's seen a lot of people flatline and die. And they come back and they say, hey, they were dead for like 3 or 4 minutes. And they're like, I saw this white light. I saw these, my family members, they told me to go back. And so it's like either my mom's lying to me, they're making that up, or there's something going on. So I just try to just take one day at a time and try to make things better for other people and, help people get what they want. And I just don't really try to focus too much on what I need because I'm cool.
Yeah. I think there comes a point. I was just got done with a mastermind with Kai Andrew, who runs this awesome YouTube channel where he really coaches and consults on glamping and Airbnb housing and all that stuff, right? And he's a minimalist, and he's gotten his expenses down to like $900 a month, right? It's crazy, right? Crazy. Yeah, but he realized, you're not going to do that with $5, by the way.
No.
But he realized just like he makes a ton of money, right? It's just that he didn't need a whole lot to make him happy, right? He's like, hey, he's a surfer, right? Jiu-jitsu guy. And he was like, flip-flops, shorts, I just need enough to eat. And, this guy was trained to, MBA trained, like to go in and do consult large companies and kind of help startups. And it's just like, after a while, I just realized, hey, there's more to it.
Yeah.
And I want to live a simple, and by the way, he got to a point where he's like totally comfortable. And then he's like, but I'm bored. And so that's where like creation, I think, is kind of part of this. Like when you write a book, you're creating something, you're putting something out into the universe, right?
Yeah.
This podcast, like it's all, I think, to scratch an itch that we have to be of value and to create. I wanted to ask you a question. If somebody wanted to write a book, actually write it from scratch, not license it, right?
Yeah.
Like they wanted to write it from scratch, right? Because there's so many people that have books in them. What's the number one advice that you would give that person?
Well, they can download a book that I wrote, which teaches people how to write a book, and it's free. So I'll give you that code at the end. Whenever the time is right, I'll get the cue from you. But I wrote the Real Estate Investor Book Writing Checklist. And inside of it is the framework that I use for any new book or project that we take on. And it's pretty simple, 5 steps. If you do them in order and you're just willing to commit to the process and, your time, and then you can definitely do it. It took me a few hundred hours to write my first book, but I mean, if you have a team, or you're a really fast writer, you can do that. The key is to like have it organized correctly and knowing exactly what the goal is with the book. Because so I read this book that my coach told me to read. It's called Book the Business by Dan Kennedy. And a lot of people think about book writing from the perspective of how they consume books, which is they purchase them and read them or not read them. And Dan said in there, famous marketer, he's amazing, great mustache. He said, if you made a list of 100 ways to make money with a book, and you put them in order, the number one, like the dead last one, would be selling it. And so a lot of people think that you make money from selling a book. And there's people who make money selling books, but those are people who are normally already famous. People already have a huge following, Oprah, Joel Osteen, people like that. The number one way to make money with a book in our business, in any high margin industry, which is what ours is to use it to acquire a new customer. And so when I read that just a little bit before I wrote this book. I was like, okay, I need to write a book to acquire a customer, because if I can make 40 grand on a flip, 20 on a wholesale, flip a listing, get a little bit of the deal. And I'm like, that's valuable. And so I framed it. So I knew exactly what the purpose was before I started. That's the biggest mistake people make, is they just write a book about themselves and a time they fell down a well, and nobody cares about that stuff. They don't care about you. They care about solving their problem. And so that's what we did. Now, people have a story. Write the book, give them the story. There's nothing wrong with that kind of book. That's just not my specialty, because I'm just using it to try to accelerate the business by leading with value. But those books are still good too.
It's interesting because obviously I'm with KW. I've been with KW since 2006, right? And what got me here was a book.
Oh,
and the book, right? The Millionaire Real Estate Agent book.
Of course.
That was the book that got me here, because it was essentially a roadmap. Like I saw it as a roadmap, right? My wife and I started on the investment side, fixing and flipping. And like, we felt like we were literally like, there was no plan. Like I was like, what's the plan? Right. And I ran across this book that kind of laid out a plan, showed us how to create active income from our agent business. And then obviously you couple it with the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Flip, Hold, that whole series. But I was like, at the end of the day, Gary's a content creator, right? When you think about it, he's a content creator who did a really good job of really spelling out the model, right? Of how to build a business. You could take the word real estate out and you could plug in any small business into that, right? There's certain things that change. So that's cool. Did you ever read the book, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got both of them over there, A Millionaire Agent and Investor. And one thing is like, that's on the top 5 list, of course. That's the book I tell everybody to get started with. It's like I said, that's one of my top 5. Yeah, but he's super, super smart. And, obviously we're going through transactional, people don't maybe know this, like transactional real estate market is the largest undisrupted market in the United States of America, $1.6 trillion of annual value. Yeah. And it's going through a big disruption right now. And we could save it for another show, but I've done an intense amount of research on this. I was preparing for like a State of the Union thing. And, I knew about it. I was selling to some hedge funds, but I didn't quite understand the whole magnitude. And then when I started researching it, of course, people like Gary Keller came into the conversation and some of the articles that I studied. And what I found was mind-boggling. This industry is going through big changes. It's not going back to the way it was. And I'm firmly convinced that people who aren't aware of this and aren't seeing it, understanding how to pivot, are going to get totally left behind. This already happened in financial services 20 years ago. When I went to UT Austin, I wanted to be a stockbroker. But by the time I got up there in 01, stockbrokers were already becoming dinosaurs. Right? It was E-Trade. It was all the online. The transactional side of this business for financial services was being overtaken by computers because they're faster. So I worked at Oxford Financial Group in Austin. My boss, Dan, about 15 years older than me, he was a stockbroker in the 90s and late 80s. And then he had to pivot, become an independent, financial advisor. And every year since then, financial advisors have really have blossomed. And there's still a market for those people. And there's still people who know that they could go do all their own trades and investments cheaper, but they're choosing to have somebody that's the guide that can move them through. But it's a much smaller segment than it was back in the day. And a lot of people are using online platforms. I think the same thing's happening in real estate. And what gives our students and our members a big advantage is because they're leading with this consultative approach. And so if you're just seen as the transactional house flipper or the transactional listing agent, your margins are getting squeezed every day. And so what we're doing, and I haven't even announced this yet, I don't even know if we talked about it, but we're launching a certification called Certified Housing Educator Program. So we're teaching agents, brokers, and investors how to reposition their business from a transactional, viewpoint to a consultative. And we plug them into some resources to do that. But I think that's the future. Hey, I might be wrong, but they got Gary Keller over a barrel, and he's a smart, powerful dude. And the iBuyers, he started his own iBuying thing. I read the quotes. He's like, I didn't want to do this. He's like, if I had wanted to buy houses, I would have done it 20 years ago, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. So there are some powerful forces at play. And
well, I feel like it's intersecting, right? The role of the investor and the agent is intersecting. And one of the things that we've done is, I saw this, I think it was OfferPad that said, and I thought it was really interesting the way they framed it. And I haven't seen this marketing since, so they've stopped it. I think they stopped it, but it said, sell it your way, right? Now, what they were leading with the investor message. Here's a cash offer. And by the way, if it doesn't work for you, here's some, agents, right, that can list the property for you. So that's leading with the investor message. And then you have another segment of the population that's leading with the agent message, being like, hey, here's, list your property with us. Oh, and by the way, if you want a cash offer, here's your option, right? So it's the reverse of that. And so we're seeing this kind of this merging, right? And what I believe is that those lines will blur. Like every real estate team will have a home buying division within them, right? Yeah. Or they'll piggyback on what Gary's done, or piggyback on what their local hard money lender's done, right? And you start off saying, it's hard to predict the future. But we are seeing trends for sure, right? So what other trends are you seeing?
Yeah, that the appetite for that the ability for people every day that goes on from now until we both leave the earth, it's going to get easier for people to leverage technology to connect with people who are going to help that will let them net out more for their house. It'll be easier than ever before. So that, I believe, is not going to change. That's just going to increase. And then the other thing that I think is going to change is that Wall Street is going to continue to be chasing, yield. And there's good yield in single family rentals. And there's still a lot of America that they haven't bought yet. But it's a pretty new asset class. However far back you can look into history is, a predictor of how far you can see into the future. Right. Yeah. And so, what a lot of people don't know is that, and I didn't know this until just a couple of years ago, that, if we go back just like around World War II and after, most of the apartments that were being held in America were not corporations. They were individuals. And then that asset check class began to change. And now, most apartment developments, its own or existing, it's bigger companies. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the same thing's happening in the single family space. About 95% of the houses by 2006 that were on Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae's books were sold not to individual investors like us, but to hedge funds, to big companies. Mm-hmm. And so if they are happy with 3 or 4% yield, and me and you would never do a deal for that, and they have really, really big pockets. I mean, look at it this way. I love these people that go, here's my favorite line I hear all the time. Oh, I just sold a house to a hedge fund and they overpaid. They're so stupid. No, they're not. You've never met anybody who works at a hedge fund. The word stupid is not a word that you would ever use to describe. People make mistakes. I'm not saying everything they do is going to be a home run deal, but they're far from stupid. And houses,
they're playing the long game.
They're playing the long game and they know how to do it. And see, OfferPad and all those guys, they've tried this before. And then when the downturn happened, they closed up. And then they came back. And so people think, oh, well, as long as there's a bull market, you're going to have people that can overpay and squeeze us out. But as soon as the market crashes, because they figured out how to get them performing as rentals. That's the difference. That's the big change that's happened in the last 10 years is the increased desire for that asset class. We already knew about it as real estate investors. My uncle had rentals. I mean, this isn't like a brand new thing, but it is to Wall Street. And so unless something happens to where, I just don't know why Zillow, they make $1,700 on a flip right now. And they're cool with that because they're playing a volume game. But me and you don't have 157 million people that went to our website in Q4. They do. So these hedge funds are investing money in technology companies that never make a profit. I'm pretty sure they're going to keep investing money in single family rentals that can cash flow. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. It's like, hey, it's like a no brainer for them. Right? Like, hey, we could get a yield, a 4% yield on this.
Right.
Do it all day long.
Right.
Awesome. Well, let's do this. Max, I want people to be able, we'll put it in the show notes. We'll make sure that everybody has it, below. But give us some sites real fast, right? Yeah. What are some of the different sites for people to find you and to I'm going to go look at that one on how to write a book. I'll download that one, right? Give me all your stuff.
Here's the sizzle. So I'll just give you one link. It's real simple. Just go to Deals. So DEALS chasingyou.com/Rob, ROB. And that'll give you the link to where you get the book for free. You can download it, the Real Estate Investor Book Writing Checklist. And then you can check out, I've got videos on that site. You can check that out. And Max Keller is my profile on Facebook. I think I have like 50 friend opportunities left. So if you join and I'm already full, I'll bump somebody off because I really want you. And that's it. They can just reach out, ask any questions. More than happy to. But the website, Deals Chasing You /Rob, will allow them to get everything that they need. And there's places where they can connect or email if they have questions. Our email address, if some people are just more into that, is info at Savior, like our Lord and Savior, publishinghouse.com. So you can check that out. Just more than happy to answer any questions.
Did I get that right? DealsChasingYou.com/Rob?
Looks good, but like I said, the dyslexia is kicking in late in the day. But yeah, I don't know who are good. Yeah, it's good. You're awesome.
Awesome. Okay, man. Hey, Max, thanks so much for sharing time with us today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Love it. We'll talk soon.
We'll talk soon.